The antiseptic smell of Cedar Hills Medical Center mixed with expensive cologne as Olivia Carter pushed her medication cart down the polished hallway of the VIP wing. At 26, she had worked as a pediatric nurse for 3 years, but tonight she was covering the premium floor where wealthy patients paid thousands for privacy and luxury. She was checking her tablet when a man's voice cut through the quiet corridor. "Excuse me, I need your help." Olivia turned to see a tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit standing outside one of the private suites. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and despite the confidence in his posture, his gray eyes held unmistakable desperation. "Are you experiencing a medical emergency, sir?" Olivia asked, immediately shifting into professional mode. "Not that kind of help." He glanced toward the elevator bank where the sound of multiple voices grew louder. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend for the next 10 minutes. Olivia blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Please." His voice dropped urgently. "Kiss me for 10 minutes. Just make it look real in front of those cameras, and I'll explain everything." Before she could respond, a swarm of photographers and reporters burst from the elevators, cameras flashing like a lightning storm. Olivia stood frozen, her mind trying to process the absurdity of the situation. "Mr. Westbrook." "Julian," they shouted. "Is it true you're calling off the merger with Thornfield Pharmaceuticals?" "Julian, where's Vanessa? Has the engagement ended?" The man turned to Olivia, and she saw something in his expression that made her hesitate. It was genuine fear, the kind she recognized from patients facing impossible diagnoses. "If I don't give them a different story right now, 300 people will lose their jobs before Christmas," he whispered. "Please." Olivia's heart pounded. Every instinct told her to walk away, but something about his plea reminded her why she became a nurse in the first place. To help people in crisis. She made a decision that would change everything. Taking a breath, Olivia stepped closer and placed her hand gently on his chest. Julian's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with relief. He cupped her face tenderly, and though their lips never quite touched, the photographers captured what looked like an intimate moment between two people deeply in love. The flashes exploded around them for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 30 seconds. Then Olivia pulled back, her cheeks burning, and walked quickly toward the medication room without looking back. Her hands shook as she tried to focus on her work. What had she just done? By morning, Olivia's life had imploded. The photograph was everywhere. Social media, news websites, morning talk shows. Tech billionaire Julian Westbrook's secret romance with mystery nurse, read one headline. From pharmaceutical heiress to hospital staff, Westbrook's surprising downgrade, said another. Olivia discovered that Julian Westbrook was the 34-year-old founder of Westbrook Technologies, a company valued at over $8 billion. He had been engaged to Vanessa Thornfield, daughter of pharmaceutical empire magnate Richard Thornfield, and their upcoming marriage was supposed to seal a massive business merger. Now, apparently, Olivia was the woman who had stolen him away. The whispers started during her shift change. "Did you see the photos? That's her, the one in the blue scrubs. How long has she been sleeping with him? I heard she transferred to VIP specifically to target rich patients." Olivia kept her head down, but the stares followed her everywhere. In the break room, conversation stopped when she entered. Colleagues who had been friendly now avoided her. Even some of the doctors treated her differently, their respect replaced with barely concealed disdain. By Wednesday, the hospital administrator called her into the office. "Miss Carter, we're reassigning you effective immediately," Director Hammond said without preamble. His expression was cold. "You'll be working the overnight shift in the psychiatric wing." "But I'm a pediatric nurse. I don't have training for psychiatric care. You should have thought about professional boundaries before getting involved with our donors." He slid a form across his desk. "Sign the transfer, or we'll have to review your employment status." Olivia signed with trembling hands, feeling tears sting her eyes. The psychiatric wing was located in the oldest part of the hospital, far from the gleaming VIP suites. The overnight shift was lonely and difficult, populated by patients most staff preferred to avoid. But Olivia found unexpected solace there. One patient, an elderly man named George Lancaster, seemed different from the others. While most residents were lost in their own worlds, George watched everything with sharp, intelligent eyes. "You're that nurse from the photos," he said one night as Olivia checked his vitals. She stiffened. "I'd rather not discuss that, Mr. Lancaster. Call me George." He studied her carefully. "I used to work for Thornfield Pharmaceuticals. 30 years in their research division before my accident." "I'm sorry about your accident." "It wasn't an accident." George's voice dropped. "They called it early onset dementia when I started asking questions about their drug trials. Made me look incompetent so nobody would believe me." Olivia paused, her instincts alerting her that something important was happening. "What kind of questions?" George reached under his mattress and pulled out a small USB drive. "They're using patients as guinea pigs. Testing drugs that haven't passed safety protocols. I kept copies before they erased everything." He pressed the drive into her palm. "You have an honest face. And from what I've seen, you're already on their radar. Might as well know what you're really up against." That night, Olivia sat in her small apartment, staring at the USB drive. She knew opening those files would mean crossing a line from which there was no return. But she also knew that staying silent would make her complicit. She plugged it in. The files contained medical records, test results, and internal communications spanning 5 years. Patients at Cedar Hills and 3 other hospitals had been given experimental medications without informed consent. Some had developed serious complications. Others had died, their deaths classified as natural causes or pre-existing conditions. And every single trial was funded by Thornfield Pharmaceuticals. Olivia's phone rang, making her jump. An unknown number. "Hello? Miss Carter, this is Julian Westbrook. I know it's late, but I need to speak with you about what happened. Can we meet?" Olivia looked at her computer screen, at the evidence of medical crimes that could destroy one of the most powerful families in the country. The same family that Julian had been about to marry into. "Yes," she said quietly. "I think we have a lot to discuss." Julian Westbrook sat across from Olivia in a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of the city, far from the restaurants where he might be recognized. He looked different without the expensive suit, wearing jeans and a simple black sweater that made him seem almost ordinary. "I owe you an explanation and an apology," he began, his coffee untouched. "What I asked you to do was unfair and selfish." Olivia wrapped her hands around her own mug, studying him. "Why did you do it?" Julian sighed heavily. "Vanessa Thornfield and I were engaged for business reasons, not love. Our families arranged it to merge my technology patents with her family's pharmaceutical distribution network. But 3 weeks ago, I discovered something that made me realize I couldn't go through with it." "What did you discover?" "That Thornfield Pharmaceuticals has been using my medical monitoring software to track patients without their knowledge. They were identifying vulnerable populations in hospitals and enrolling them in unauthorized drug trials." His jaw tightened. "When I confronted Vanessa, she laughed. Said it was just efficient market research." Olivia felt her heart race. "I have proof." She pulled out the USB drive and explained what George Lancaster had given her. Julian's expression shifted from surprise to grim determination as he listened. "If we expose this, Vanessa won't just come after me," he warned. "She'll destroy anyone involved. She has lawyers, politicians, and media connections that most people can't imagine." "I'm already destroyed," Olivia said quietly. "My reputation is gone. My colleagues hate me. I've been demoted to the worst shift in the hospital. What more can she take? Your freedom. Your family. Your future." Julian met her eyes. "I've seen what the Thornfield family does to people who cross them. They don't just win. They erase you. Olivia thought of the patients whose records she had read. People who trusted doctors and ended up as test subjects. Families who never knew their loved ones had been experimented on. Then we need to be smarter than them, she said. And we need help. That help came in the form of Blake Morrison, an investigative journalist who had been trying to expose pharmaceutical corruption for years. Julian arranged a meeting at a secure location, an office building his company owned that was currently under renovation. Blake was a woman in her early 40s with sharp features and skeptical eyes. She arrived with a laptop bag and a recording device. "I've heard rumors about Thornfield for years," Blake said after reviewing the files. "But they're untouchable. Every time someone gets close to a story, it disappears. Sources recant. Evidence vanishes. Journalists lose their jobs." "This is different," Olivia insisted. "These are medical records. Patient histories. Internal communications with dates and signatures." Blake nodded slowly. "It's compelling. But we need more. We need someone from inside Thornfield willing to testify, and we need to verify these trials actually happened." Over the next 2 weeks, they worked in secret. Julian used his technology connections to trace the digital fingerprints on the medical records, confirming they originated from Thornfield systems. Blake interviewed former Thornfield employees who spoke off the record about suspicious research practices. Meanwhile, Olivia continued working her overnight shifts, quietly reviewing patient files and looking for patterns. She found them. 17 patients at Cedar Hills alone showed signs of having received medications that weren't part of their prescribed treatment plans. One night, she was documenting her findings when her supervisor, Helen Crawford, appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing, Carter?" Helen's voice was cold. "Checking patient records. Making sure medications are properly logged. You're not authorized to access those files." Helen stepped closer. "I've received complaints about you. Overstepping boundaries. Making unauthorized chart reviews. It needs to stop." Olivia met her gaze steadily. "Are you telling me not to verify patient safety?" "I'm telling you to do your assigned job and nothing more." After Helen left, Olivia's hands shook as she saved her notes to a secure cloud account. The walls were closing in. The next morning, she received a call from her mother. "Olivia, something strange happened with my insurance," her mother said, anxiety clear in her voice. "They're saying my coverage was canceled due to a billing error. My medication costs $600 without insurance." Olivia closed her eyes, feeling cold dread wash over her. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of it." But she knew it wasn't an error. It was a message. She called Julian immediately. "They're going after my family." "I know. They just filed a lawsuit against me for breach of contract. $50 million. His voice was tight. "Vanessa is declaring war." That evening, Vanessa Thornfield herself appeared at Cedar Hills Medical Center. Olivia was at the nurse's station when she arrived, immaculately dressed in a cream-colored designer suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a flawless chignon. "So you're the little nurse who thinks she can steal what's mine," Vanessa said, her voice honey-sweet and venomous. Olivia stood slowly. "I'm not interested in your games." "Games?" Vanessa laughed. "Darling, this isn't a game. This is business. And in business, there are winners and losers. You, unfortunately, are a loser. We'll see about that." Vanessa's smile never wavered, but her eyes turned ice cold. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. My family has built an empire over 3 generations. We employ thousands of people. We fund hospitals, universities, research facilities. One insignificant nurse with delusions of heroism won't change anything." "Maybe not one nurse," Olivia replied. "But what about one nurse with evidence? With witnesses? With a journalist who knows how to tell the story?" For the first time, Vanessa's composure cracked slightly. If you're trying to threaten me, you've made a serious miscalculation. I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing before the choice is taken away from you. Vanessa leaned in close. Let me make something very clear. If you pursue this, I will destroy you. Not just your career. Everything. Your mother's medical care will evaporate. Your credit will be ruined. Every future employer will hear about the unstable nurse who fabricated accusations. You'll end up homeless and alone, and nobody will remember your name. She turned and walked away, heels clicking on the polished floor. Olivia stood there, heart pounding, knowing she had just crossed the point of no return. That night, Blake called with urgent news. I found our inside source. There's a research coordinator at Thornfield who's willing to talk. She was involved in the trial protocols and kept copies of everything. Will she testify? Julian asked over the conference call. If we can guarantee protection. She has a family. She's terrified. They arranged to meet the whistleblower, a woman named Patricia Chen who had worked at Thornfield for 12 years. She arrived at the meeting location looking exhausted and frightened, carrying a briefcase full of documents. I've watched people suffer and die because of what we did, Patricia said, her voice breaking. I told myself it was for the greater good. That the research would eventually help people. But it was always about money. About getting drugs to market faster than the competition. She spread documents across the table. Authorization forms with forged signatures. Safety reports with altered data. Financial records showing millions in profits from drugs that should never have been approved. This is enough to bring federal charges, Blake said, photographing everything. But as they were finishing, Julian's phone buzzed with an alert. His face went pale. They know we're here. Security footage from this building just got flagged in a Thornfield monitoring system. How is that possible? Olivia asked. They must have access to city surveillance networks. Julian was already gathering the documents. We need to leave now. They split up, each taking different exits. Olivia clutched a backup drive containing copies of Patricia's files, her heart racing as she hurried to her car. She was halfway home when she noticed the black sedan following her. It stayed 3 cars back but matched every turn she made. Olivia's mouth went dry. She pulled into a well-lit gas station, but the sedan simply parked across the street, waiting. She called Julian. Someone's following me. Stay in public. I'm sending my security team to your location. 20 minutes later, a different vehicle arrived, 2 professional bodyguards who escorted her to a safe location, a furnished apartment Julian kept for business guests. You'll stay here until we figure out our next move, Julian said when he arrived an hour later. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to be in danger. Olivia sank onto the sofa, exhaustion finally catching up with her. What have we gotten ourselves into? Something that should have been exposed years ago. He sat beside her. But we're close now. Blake is drafting the article. Patricia's testimony gives us credibility. The medical records prove systematic abuse. We just need one more thing. What's that? We need the financial trail. Proof that Thornfield executives knew about the dangers and approved the trials anyway for profit. That turns this from negligence into criminal conspiracy. Olivia thought about everything she had seen, all the files and records. Then she remembered something George Lancaster had said. George told me there were offshore accounts. Money flowing through shell companies to hide the funding sources. Julian's eyes lit up. If we can trace those accounts, we have everything. Over the next 48 hours, Julian used every resource at his disposal. His company's financial analysts worked around the clock, following digital breadcrumbs through international banking systems. Blake coordinated with federal investigators, building a case that couldn't be ignored. And Olivia waited, knowing that somewhere out there, Vanessa Thornfield was preparing her counterattack. It came on Thursday morning. Olivia was arrested at the safe house, charged with theft of confidential medical records and corporate espionage. The police had a warrant signed by a judge who had received substantial campaign contributions from the Thornfield family. As they led her out in handcuffs, reporters were already waiting, cameras rolling. Julian watched from the window, his fists clenched, knowing that the final battle was just beginning. The holding cell was cold and sterile, nothing like the hospital rooms Olivia was accustomed to. She sat on the narrow bench, still wearing her casual clothes from the safe house, trying to process how quickly everything had fallen apart. Through the small window in the door, she could see officers moving back and forth, their voices muffled. Hours passed before a lawyer arrived. He was a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and calm eyes. "Miss Carter, my name is Robert Finch. Julian Westbrook retained me to represent you." He sat across from her, opening his briefcase. "The charges against you are serious, but they're also fabricated. We're going to fight this." "How?" "They have judges, politicians, everyone in their pocket." "Not everyone." Robert smiled slightly. "The federal prosecutor's office has been building a case against Thornfield Pharmaceuticals independently. Your evidence accelerated their timeline. Blake Morrison delivered everything to them this morning." Olivia felt a flicker of hope. "So what happens now?" "Now we go public. Completely public. Before Vanessa can bury this story, we make sure the entire country knows what's at stake." That afternoon, Blake's article went live simultaneously on 3 major news platforms. The headline read, "American patients used as guinea pigs, inside Thornfield Pharmaceuticals' secret drug trials." The response was immediate and explosive. Within hours, the story was trending on every social media platform. News channels interrupted their regular programming. Medical ethics boards issued emergency statements. Patient advocacy groups demanded investigations. The article contained everything: Patricia Chen's testimony, the falsified medical records, financial documents showing Thornfield executives authorizing dangerous trials, and patient stories with names and faces. 17 families who had lost loved ones under mysterious circumstances now had answers. In her holding cell, Olivia watched the news coverage on a small television. She saw her own photograph, but this time the narrative had changed. Brave nurse exposes medical corruption. Healthcare worker risks everything to save patients. By evening, the public pressure had become overwhelming. The judge who signed the arrest warrant recused himself from the case, citing potential conflicts of interest. The new judge reviewed the charges, examined the evidence, and dismissed the case entirely within an hour. "Miss Carter, you're free to go," an officer told her, unlocking the cell. "Your belongings are at the front desk." Outside the police station, a crowd had gathered. Reporters shouted questions while supporters held signs reading, "Thank you, Olivia," and "Healthcare heroes tell the truth." Julian pushed through the crowd and pulled her into a protective embrace. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I think so." Olivia looked around at the chaos, still trying to comprehend it. "Is this really happening?" "It's happening. And it's just the beginning." Over the next week, the dominoes fell rapidly. Federal agents raided Thornfield Pharmaceuticals' headquarters, seizing computers, files, and financial records. 3 senior executives were arrested, including Vanessa's father, Richard Thornfield. Trading of Thornfield stock was suspended as the Securities and Exchange Commission launched an investigation. Vanessa herself tried to flee the country but was detained at the airport. The photographs of her in handcuffs, her perfect composure finally shattered, were plastered across every newspaper. The trial began 2 months later in federal court. The courtroom was packed every single day, with overflow crowds watching on monitors in adjacent rooms. Olivia testified for 6 hours, walking the jury through patient records, explaining how she discovered the irregularities, and describing the retaliation she faced. Patricia Chen's testimony was even more damning. She provided insider details about how trials were designed to hide side effects, how adverse events were reclassified to avoid reporting requirements, and how Thornfield executives celebrated when dangerous drugs received regulatory approval. Julian testified about the technology systems Thornfield had exploited, showing how they had tracked patients across multiple hospitals without consent. His technical expertise made the conspiracy undeniable. The defense attorneys tried to paint Olivia as a disgruntled employee seeking attention, Julian as a bitter ex-fiancé seeking revenge, and Patricia as a liar trying to avoid accountability for her own actions. But the evidence was too comprehensive, too well documented. On the 18th day of trial, the jury deliberated for 7 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood and read the verdict: "We find the defendants guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted. Some people cheered while others wept. Olivia sat motionless, feeling the weight of 2 months lift from her shoulders. Julian reached over and squeezed her hand. Vanessa Thornfield showed no emotion as the judge sentenced her to 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of early parole. Her father received 30 years. The other executives received sentences ranging from 15 to 20 years. This court finds that you engaged in a systematic, calculated conspiracy that put profit above human life, the judge stated, his voice stern. You betrayed the trust that patients place in medical professionals and pharmaceutical companies. Your actions resulted in suffering, permanent injury, and death. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes and serves as a warning to others who might consider similar conduct. As the defendants were led away, Olivia finally allowed herself to cry. Not from sadness, but from relief and exhaustion. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of people waited. Many were family members of patients who had been harmed by Thornfield's trials. They approached Olivia with gratitude, sharing stories of their loved ones, thanking her for giving them answers and justice. An older woman with gray hair and kind eyes took Olivia's hands. "My son died 3 years ago. The doctor said it was his heart, but we never understood why. Now we know. Thank you for not staying silent." Those words, Olivia realized, made everything worthwhile. In the aftermath of the trial, sweeping reforms were implemented. Congress passed the Patient Protection and Pharmaceutical Accountability Act, requiring independent oversight of all drug trials and criminal penalties for executives who authorize unsafe testing. Hospitals nationwide revised their protocols for medication administration and record keeping. Cedar Hills Medical Center offered Olivia her old position back with a promotion and a public apology. She declined politely. "I appreciate the offer," she told Director Hammond, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. "But I've realized I want to work somewhere that prioritizes patients over prestige." Instead, she accepted a position developing a new initiative that Julian had proposed, the Hope Harbor Medical Foundation. Using funds recovered from Thornfield's assets and Julian's personal investment, they created a network of community health centers focused on serving underserved populations. The first clinic opened in a low-income neighborhood that had lost its only hospital 5 years earlier. Olivia designed the facility with patient comfort and dignity as the primary goals. Bright colors, comfortable waiting areas, bilingual staff, and a strict policy of treating every person with respect regardless of their ability to pay. "This is what healthcare should be," she told the staff on opening day. Not a business transaction, but a human connection. Julian had stepped back from Westbrook Technologies, appointing a new CEO while he focused on philanthropic work. He and Olivia worked side by side, planning new clinics, recruiting compassionate healthcare workers, and ensuring that the mistakes of Thornfield would never be repeated in their organization. 6 months after the first clinic opened, they were featured on a national news program. The interviewer asked Olivia what she had learned from her experience. "I learned that doing the right thing is rarely easy," Olivia said thoughtfully. "There were so many moments when staying silent would have been simpler. But silence protects the wrong people. Speaking up, even when you're terrified, is how change actually happens." "What would you say to someone facing a similar situation?" the interviewer asked. "I would say that your voice matters more than you think. One person with courage can inspire others. One person with evidence can change systems." You don't have to be powerful or connected or wealthy. You just have to be willing to stand up, even when standing up means standing alone at first. The interview aired on a Sunday evening and was viewed by over 15 million people. By Monday morning, Olivia's inbox was flooded with messages from healthcare workers across the country sharing their own stories of corruption, negligence, and cover-ups. She and Julian realized they had inadvertently created a movement. They established a secure platform where medical professionals could report concerns anonymously, connecting whistleblowers with legal resources and investigative journalists. Within a year, 3 more pharmaceutical companies and 2 hospital chains were under federal investigation based on tips submitted through the platform. One evening, Olivia and Julian stood on the roof deck of the newest Hope Harbor Clinic, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The clinic below was busy with evening appointments, families coming in for care, children's laughter echoing from the pediatric wing. "Do you ever regret it?" Julian asked quietly. "Everything you went through?" Olivia considered the question carefully. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that people had to suffer before the truth came out. But do I regret speaking up? Never. I asked you to kiss me for 10 minutes, Julian said with a slight smile. And somehow that moment changed both of our lives completely. It changed a lot more than just our lives." Olivia leaned against the railing. "How many patients are safer now because of what we exposed? How many families will get honest answers instead of cover-ups? That fake kiss might have been the most important 10 minutes of my life." Julian moved closer, his expression serious. "What if I asked for a real kiss now? Not for cameras or publicity, but just because I've fallen completely in love with the most courageous person I've ever met?" Olivia's breath caught. Over the past year, their partnership had deepened into something neither of them had anticipated. Late nights planning clinics had turned into long conversations about dreams and fears. Professional respect had evolved into profound admiration. Somewhere along the way, friendship had transformed into love. "Then I would say yes," she whispered. "Not for 10 minutes. For as long as you want." This time, when they kissed, there were no cameras, no reporters, no ulterior motives. Just 2 people who had survived a storm together and found something beautiful on the other side. A year later, George Lancaster passed away peacefully in his sleep at a specialized care facility funded by the Hope Harbor Foundation. Olivia was there, holding his hand. His last words were, "You did good, nurse. You did real good." They named the foundation's research ethics program after him, the Lancaster Initiative for Medical Integrity. 2 years after the trial, Olivia received the National Medal of Healthcare Excellence from the President of the United States. Standing in the White House, wearing a simple navy dress, she accepted the medal with humility. "This honor belongs to every healthcare worker who puts patients first," she said in her acceptance speech. "To every person who sees wrongdoing and refuses to look away. To everyone who believes that healing should be built on trust, not profit. This medal represents all of you." The Hope Harbor Foundation eventually grew to 37 clinics across 12 states, providing care to over 200,000 patients annually. Every clinic displayed the same mission statement, written by Olivia: "Healthcare is a human right. Compassion is our currency. Truth is our foundation." On their wedding day, 3 years after that fateful night in the hospital corridor, Olivia and Julian exchanged vows in a small ceremony at the original Hope Harbor Clinic. The guest list included former patients, dedicated healthcare workers, Blake Morrison, Patricia Chen, and family members of those who had been harmed by Thornfield's crimes. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by people they had helped and who had helped them, Olivia reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with a desperate request and a moment of compassion. She had lost her reputation, her job, her sense of safety. But she had gained something far more valuable: the knowledge that one person truly can make a difference. That courage is contagious. That truth, no matter how hard people try to bury it, eventually finds its way to light. And most importantly, she had learned that the most powerful force in healthcare, in justice, and in life itself, is the simple act of caring enough to do the right thing, even when the cost seems impossibly high. Years later, when young nurses asked her for advice, Olivia always told them the same thing: trust your instincts. Protect your patients. Speak your truth. And remember that the right choice is rarely the easy one, but it's always the one you can live with. The story of the nurse who brought down a pharmaceutical empire became legend in medical schools and ethics courses. But for Olivia, it was never about fame or recognition. It was about honoring the people who couldn't speak for themselves and ensuring that their suffering meant something. Every evening, as she walked through the Hope Harbor clinics, seeing patients receive care with dignity and respect, she knew that the 10 minutes that changed her life had been worth every second. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.